Where are all the men? What happened to us, and where do we go? These are questions that I have been asking myself continuously over the past few years. It's more rhetorical because I already know the answers. This subject right here is one that is very difficult for me to deal with because I know that it is a huge reason why the world has been able to be overtaken in the way that it has been. It's also a very difficult topic to cover because of how far we have come in society away from traditional values. Liberalism has taken over and silently has created a new way the world should be. And if you have not been exposed to all the truth surrounding it, a topic like this may be hard to hear. So because of that, I do expect a lot of pushback in regards to what it is I have to say here. All I ask before you react is to please try to hear me out completely. Over the last century, the role of man has been challenged, reduced, and now it has been changed. And we are now at a point in time where people don't understand the differences between a man and a woman. People can't even explain what the difference is from a physical aspect.
This is one of the problems with this left-wing gender ideology, is that no one who espouses it can even tell you what these words mean. It's like, what is a woman?
Well,
can you tell me what a woman is?
No, I can't. Because it's not for me to say. Womanhood looks different for everybody.
And today, what people have classified as gender roles have now been mixed, and you can be deemed as being against society if you stick to the purpose of what men and women were created originally for. You are looked at as sexist or not with the times or whatever else. I am personally completely sick over it all, and something needs to be said about it. Last month in June, when Roe v. Wade was reversed, all you heard in the media is that there was a war against women. But in reality, there is actually a war against men, and it has been extremely effective and crippling. This war on men has been a major victory for those that desire to subdue and conquer the population of this earth. Last year, I made a video about feminism, and that subject was very important to cover because, like I said in the video, this world is completely upside down. And the most disturbing part to it all is the fact that the majority does not realize it. If you attempt to bring this up and highlight the delusion, you can be silenced and portrayed as a speaker of hate or discrimination. And I want to make it clear that though you may disagree with me and you may feel my views are outdated, I do not hate you nor discriminate against you. In that video, I carefully try to tackle the topic of feminism. We discussed the women empowerment movement, not to bring women down, but to do the opposite and uplift them. In that video, many women understood what it was I was communicating, and the message was received. But many also requested that I spoke to the men as well, because they thought I was putting the fault or blame on the issue squarely on women. But I was not. I have always desired to speak on this issue, but it had to be done correctly and by the leading of the Most High. So it's time to speak to the men of this world and bring some truth out in the open. There is only power in the truth, and the truth is what has been lost in this upside down world. So I would again like to use this soapbox to bring attention to the truth and cast down the lies. Let's begin. Okay, so here's the deal. If you don't see that there has been a war waged against men, then I sincerely ask that you hear me out before you rebuke my claim and label it as absurd or false. You see, the war against men isn't about women against men. It's not about hatred against gender or anything like that. When you hear thoughts like that, it's only to cause division and distraction. The war against men is about achieving the exact same goal that the women empowerment movement is about. It is a war that has been waged in the minds of the unsuspecting public for years, and is easily seen to be a complete agenda against humanity as a whole. It should not be viewed in the eyes of anti-men or pro-women. Do not look at it through those lenses. Hear this clearly. You are missing the point by looking at it from the perspective from those, the ones who are provoking the war, if you're understanding things from the perspective that they would like you to see it through. In my video about feminism, I went over the actual agenda. If you have not watched that video, please watch it so you can understand this issue from the other side of the same coin. In that video, I explained the thought process around feminism and women empowerment. And then I covered the real agenda that it was all about. In this video, before I go into explaining about the war on men, I think it's important to understand why this war is being waged. Like I said, the war against men is about achieving the same exact goal that the movement about empowering women is all about. It's also about obtaining the same goal that goes along with the pro-abortion and pro-same-sex marriage agenda. Now, of course, the ultimate goal is all about rebellion against the Most High. We are created beings and made in God's image. He designed us both, man and woman. He gave us different roles and different characteristics. We were not made equally. For instance, on our chest, a woman has breasts and a man does not. And our genitalia is different. They are not equal. A child that was born a man has never had the ability to birth a child, ever. This is a role only given to women, and therefore there is a difference between genders. The understanding of what are now called gender roles basically goes into what you believe. If you're an atheist or a Satanist, or there's no real label on what you believe, but you just don't believe in the Bible specifically, then it's possible your view may or may not differ with the understanding that those who believe in the Bible believe. What I'm saying is that if you believe that we are all created beings and we have a creator, and you believe what the Bible says about creation, then there can only be one view about gender roles. If you don't believe that, then your view can be anything else. But in reference to the Bible, we can find it spoken about in the second chapter of the first book, Genesis chapter 2. And Yahuwah Elohim said, "It is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helper comparable to him." That's Genesis chapter 2, verse 18. Verse 20 says, "So Adam gave names to all cattle, to the birds of the air, and to every beast of the field. But for Adam, there was not found a helper comparable to him. And Yahuwah Elohim caused a deep sleep to fall on Adam, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs, and closed up the flesh in its place. Then the rib which Yahuwah Elohim had taken from man, he made into a woman, and he brought her to the man. And Adam said, 'This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother, and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And they were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed.'" That's Genesis chapter 2, verses 21 to 25. You see, there was not anything else in the garden that could be a helper to Adam. Yah did not like that Adam was alone, and so he took from Adam and made woman, who is Eve. She was made as a helper to Adam. Not a slave, not a servant, but she is his helper. It's important to understand that this role was never reversed. What I mean by that is, there's no scripture in the Bible that says the man is the woman's helper. Now please understand that is not said to diminish or lower a woman's value. There are just different roles for men and women, and this has always been the way the world has been for the majority of our time. Men have been the providers, and women took care of the home and raised the children. Unfortunately today, when you say something like this, people will say that this view is sexist or belittling women. But that is only because our values and our way of life have changed so drastically over this last century that everything now today is backwards. In the past, this point wasn't something that was debatable. When people had to hunt for their food, when they had to protect their homes and villages from enemies seeking to conquer their land, nothing had to be said. It wasn't debated whether the women or the men should go. I mean, even when the Titanic was sinking, it's not like they were drawing straws between the men, women, and children. No.
For the time being, I shall require only women and children.
Men have always had different roles. Men hunted for the food and raised their sons to help them, and they fought the wars. They can make all the movies they want about women warriors, but this was not the norm. The women raised the children and took care of the needs for the man, so that the man could do what he needed to do for the family. This was the circle. This was the way. If the man died, the sons would take care of their mom. This was the way things worked. But now, in this controlled, civilized world, roles are now able to be challenged because there is no longer hunting for food. This whole challenging of roles has only become because the world has changed. Again, we're no longer hunting for food. We're going to the market and purchasing food with money. The right to survive is no longer about strength and skill of hunting. It's about how much money one has or how much money one earns. The system was built around money, and it is money that brings the thought of value and purpose in this world now. And as long as women are able to earn, she is able to now be a provider and put food on the table. And as technology has grown, jobs that were once done primarily by men, many of these jobs have been taken away now because robots and computers are able to replace workers. That's changing the workforce forever, making office work more financially rewarding than blue-collar jobs of the past. So now that money is the great measurement tool of our day, money is now the determining factor of our gender roles. Today, money determines who should be the provider and who is the man in the relationship. We find that men are no longer leading their households because all of a sudden the women are making more than the men. And to many of these women, not all, but to many, they feel that to be submissive is degrading and bringing women down. And from all of that, we see women are now saying that they don't need a man. Now, there's so much more that goes with this, but this is just an overview of the situation. All of that is just cause and effect. But again, what is the point to this agenda? I said earlier, the war against men is about achieving the exact same goal that the movement about empowering women is all about. It's also about the same goal that goes along with the pro-abortion and pro-same-sex marriage agenda. Do you know what all of these agendas accomplish? I mean, it's really quite simple. They reduce the population of the earth. Understand this. If you understand that we have a creator, you must understand that our creator has an enemy. And this enemy is an enemy to all humanity. He hates Yah's creation because he does not have that same power. He wants to control creation and the population. He'd rather breed babies scientifically through his own power than to have Yah's power show through. All of this is an agenda against humanity because in order to control it more effectively, they believe that the population must be decreased. Have you heard of the Georgia Guidestones? Do you remember in the beginning of July, a stone was blown up or something? One of the biggest goals that's on the Georgia Guidestones is about reducing the population. Two of the goals were maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. Now keep in mind that humanity's population right now is under 8 billion. And another goal on there was to guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. Another goal about population control. I'll bring this up to show that there is a depopulation agenda. This is also found within the climate change agendas because the claim that they make is that the high and continuously increasing population of the world is the biggest cause for climate change that they say is happening.
Probably one of these numbers is going to have to get pretty near to zero.
Reducing the population in their eyes reduces climate change. And so, with understanding the agenda around population control, understand, by making women believe that their careers are more important than raising families, or if you make them believe they don't need a man, or they're waiting to find a man that is at their level, etc., the population of the world will decrease. The more same-sex marriages we have, the less people are having children. And we are already seeing this occur. Look at this article from BBC posted on July of 2020. It says, fertility rate, jaw-dropping global crash in children being born. Yeah, and this is the main secular agenda surrounding this war against men and the feminist women empowerment movement. Now, you should understand these goals aren't going anywhere. This is a goal that the leadership of the world has agreed to already. Because of goals like number 5 of the Sustainable Development Goals, which is to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls, women are redefining their place and role in this world, and they are completely rebelling against the purpose that Yah has created them for. And being that the world has agreed to this goal, those of us who are against it will be silenced in the end. Please understand the problem. The role of men and women has come into challenge in this world because of economics. Because this world system was built around idolatrous principles surrounding money and the underlying principles of Darwin's survival of the fittest, those that control the money control society and can then shift our way of life. For instance, let's look at it from how things have changed here in the United States. Being that the rest of the world is drunk off this country's wine, seeing how things started changing in this country can help with perspective. In the first third of the 20th century, the year 1900 to 1930 or so, most women in the United States did not work outside their home. And those who did were primarily young and unmarried. In that era, just 20% of all women were gainful workers, meaning working outside the home. And only 5% of married women were a part of this. Between the 1930s and mid-1970s, women's participation in the economy continued to rise, and these gains were seen primarily among married women. Look at this chart from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. This is a chart of the labor force participation rate of women in the United States from 1950 to this current year of 2022. In the year 1950, the women's labor force participation rate was a low 30%, and by the year 2000, it almost doubled. So in half a century, with a booming population growth, the percentage of women working nearly doubled. The rise of women in the labor force was not about a change in ideals and women empowerment. It was about a few different factors, first and primary being inflation. As the value of the dollar began to decrease, the more demand there was for two-income households. In order to afford their lifestyle, women had to leave their homes and get jobs. And along with that, new technologies like the telephone and enhanced typewriters contributed to an increased demand for clerical workers. And those jobs were increasingly taken by women. Understand, when all this was happening, this was not about women empowerment. This was about economics. Women were filling in the role the economy needed them to fill, and it's important that's understood. Big business was the main spark to the women's right and feminist movement. It was about profits and filling in the wage gaps that was created after the war, inflation, and new technologies. And as this trend grew, the feminist movement gained steam and started transforming the minds of women. As more women started going to college and getting college degrees, they began to become equal as their male counterparts who were seeking the same goals. The focus of women shifted from finding a husband, getting married, and starting a family to now getting their careers started and earning a living for themselves. Careers started to take the priority over families. And by direct consequence of this agenda, it affected families as a whole, because women went from being caretakers of their families to now sending them to public schools in order for the system to have more control over their child's mind than the parents did. And so then we later see, after a generation of women going to work, a majority of the children were now under the care of the state for more hours than they were with their own parents. So if you just think about it for yourself, by consequence of this, who now have more access and control over the minds of the children of our future? This was all by design. And on the flip side, the economy was not always on the side of men, especially in the Black community. It was hard for men to find jobs to support their own families, and the system was so messed up that it only paid food stamps and provided government assistance if a man was not living in the household.
I want to be able to buy myself a car, and buy myself one of them new apartments or a new house, that they're going to bring into the neighborhood for low-income families. I want to be able to do all those things. I want to be able to live a normal life like that. I don't want to have to just start, scheming, and driving people for money and for jobs, and I don't want to go back to that.
We will tighten welfare and give more attention to outside sources of income when determining the amount of welfare an individual is allowed.
Not to mention that as lust filled our television sets and advertisers started putting skinny models in bikinis on our billboards, men's desire for what a woman was supposed to be like changed, and divorces began to rise. But listen, I could go on and on with the reasoning behind the problems that contribute to the lack of masculinity in our world today. There is even something called toxic masculinity. This is defined as a set of attitudes and ways of behaving stereotypically associated with or expected of men, regarded as having a negative impact on men and on society as a whole. Basically, in this culture, it can be wrong to be too masculine. It's toxic masculinity. It's crazy. And this needs to be said because I want to make it clear. I am not speaking against women working. I understand that feminist thought may be jumping in and saying that I'm attacking you, but that's not what I'm doing. I understand with our economic pressures, families have to do what they have to do. I am simply trying to illustrate that over time, as the economic system gently forced women into labor, away from taking care of their families, mindsets and gender roles began to change our society, and the family unit has never been the same. I am not against women that work, and I really want to clarify that in case any women watching this feel judged or attacked by me. That is not my intention. We are all products of a complex system that has desired to change the world in the way Yah has designed it. I'm just trying to get people to understand how it all happened. This is not a call for women to quit their jobs, but to understand where certain mindsets and behaviors have come from. I really hope that makes sense. And listen, I do not believe that women are just less capable than men. That is not what I'm saying. I believe that women are very capable, and they have shown this over the years. I'm just saying that roles have been in our society for millennia for a reason. As soon as we decided to change them, you can see what has happened to our families. This is not to put blame on one group, but on all of us. I did explain this in much greater detail in the feminism video, so if you still do not really understand, please watch that video. I could say all of this, but each point I have takes me in another direction. What I will say, and this is the reason I made this video, there is an extremely important role that men have always played that has been overlooked and trivialized. And because this role has been overlooked, this is a big reason why we are now seeing this dramatic change happening in the world today. You see, other than being a provider, the man has played the role as a protector of his family and community. Strong men help build strong families, which then help build strong communities. A community that has strong men and present fathers in it, those communities tend to have less problems. When a parent is missing out of the home, there are many gaps that need to be filled. And the parent that is often most missing from these families today is sadly the father. The father protects the child and helps develop confidence in them. When fathers are actively involved with their children, children do better. They're typically more confident and assured. The child from very early on knows that my father is here to protect me. If I'm scared, run to dad. If someone is bothering me, run to dad. If someone is breaking in our home, our dad is the one to protect us. There has always been a lot that went into the role of being a man and then a father. The man was the first line of defense of wrong and evil coming into our homes, our families, and our communities. And it is easily seen that the devil successfully worked on a strategy of attacking and weakening men so that families and communities will be defenseless against his schemes and his plots. Strong men would stand on the post and say, "Not today, Satan." They would stand up strong for their families and not tolerate evil and foolishness. But as the role of men began to get blurred and the role of protector and provider of a family got skewed, the devil has had more free reign to wreak havoc. The more single-parent households we had with homes absent of fathers, the more children there were that were raised without understanding of what a man was supposed to be. It is very hard for women to raise up strong men because they themselves are not one. And this attack on men has weakened our society and has left us completely vulnerable to spiritual, mental, and physical attacks from our enemy. And today, as I look up and see what is coming to this world, I feel such a sense of frustration for our communities. For me, I personally wish I could be a father to all the fatherless and teach these young men how to be men. There is this thing going around on social media right now where I'm seeing men showing how they will only bring one meal to feed their child, even though the mom has other children. For me, it's one of the most frustrating and evil things for me to see. And the men feel they have a justified reason for their position. and the women act in such ignorant ways which allows the male's position to feel justified. But my problem is with the man, because they feel good about feeding their own, but they will see others starve. No, those others are not your children, I understand that, but they are still a part of your community, and they are your child's brother and sister. I mean, I feel so bad for these children. I mean, how do we expect these children to end up when they get older? They're going to be cold, selfish, heartless, untrusting, uncaring, jealous, etc., etc. All because this young man doesn't understand his role as a man. Now trust me, I get it. I know I don't know the ins and outs of this story, and I don't know them personally. I'm not speaking about that specific situation. I'm not speaking directly about this video that I displayed. I'm speaking about the mentality as a whole. If you read the comments, both sides raise good points about why the man is doing good trying to feed his child, and why the woman has a good point about thinking about her other children. They're both good arguments. And to add to that, with the way that she acts and how we have seen other women react, again, the man just seems justified. And I know that we also have to put money into this equation because maybe he's doing the best that he can. I understand that. But this whole situation is bigger than all those points. If we as men are not looking out for this next generation, regardless if they are from our blood or not, who will? It's deeper than just personal responsibility, but about a collective responsibility. And this point has been lost within manhood of today. That's what I'm speaking to. I really hope that makes sense, because I know people might have felt triggered because of me bringing this up. You see, as economic collapse lingers and war is on the horizon, I need to be clear to any man watching who it is that we are. As men, we are responsible for our families, absolutely. But we are also responsible for our communities. And the more we allow evil to grow in front of us and are silent to it, the more we allow the destruction of our communities, which will then come back and destroy your family along with it. I want to give a message to all men and make sure that these things have been said, who we must be. If you hear something that you might fall short with, you may feel uncomfortable, I know. You may want to attack me. You may want to stop the video, ignore what I've said, and say, hey, he doesn't know my situation. I mean, you're right. I don't know your situation. And I'm not here propping myself up as some perfect and ultimate man. But I am a man. And at this point in time where we are in this world, certain things just need to be said and understood. If none of this applies to you, I'm very happy about that. This is more directed towards our younger men who may not have heard this type of message before. Single mothers who are watching, please have your sons hear this as well. So, being a man, it first starts with responsibility. Remember that word. This is major because it goes along with so many other issues and topics. The point of being a man is being responsible and accountable. As a man, you are responsible for yourself. You're responsible for your wife, and if you're not married, your woman, your children, and your community. What happens in your life, you are responsible for. We can't just shift blame as a man. We can't look to blame the other man or the other people against us. We are men. As men, we must know that we have enemies, seen and unseen. We are not victims to our circumstances. We are responsible on how we deal with them. We are responsible for what we do and what we don't do, how we respond and how we don't respond, what we pay attention to and what we ignore. There is a problem with men today because they do not want to take responsibility. They want to shift blame as soon as possible because they don't like feeling uncomfortable. Irresponsibility is a plague amongst us men, and we like to casually shift blame and responsibility to everyone else except ourselves. We must be responsible and hold ourselves accountable to it. You are responsible for yourself, you're responsible for your wife, you're responsible for your children, and you're responsible for your community. And understand this clearly. Your life is more than being responsible to make money for yourself and be a baller. You're responsible for yourself, your wife, your children, and your community because Yah made you the head. In His eyes, there is a hierarchy. And if you do not recognize this, this is where the problem will begin. It is Yahusha the Messiah, then the husband, then the wife, then the children. and this is the hierarchy, and it was always supposed to be repeated as generations passed. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. That's Genesis chapter 2, verse 24. I read that earlier. Our behaviors and the way society is today has changed this so that we have a bunch of people running around not claiming responsibility for themselves and then their women or their children. These women need to be protected, and we are responsible for them. The government is not responsible for you to protect your family and your children. You as a man are responsible for this. Now, does the system make it hard for us? Absolutely. But again, we are responsible for how we deal with it, not what it does to us. Now, as a man, understand, we cannot do anything with those that fully fall in that liberal, feminist agenda and say they don't need a man for nothing. But that should not stop you from being the example of a man of Yah. Being a man who is responsible for himself, his woman, his children, and his community. Now, ladies, please understand, just because you make more money than your man doesn't mean the hierarchy changes. This is a major problem today. Let me ask you, if your child somehow becomes a millionaire, does that mean that this 8-year-old now are the ones who makes decisions in your home? Money does not change the hierarchy Yah created, especially when you're in a system that has been made to elevate the woman over the man. Listen, I know I'm stepping on some toes this week, but some things just have to be said. As a man, we are the spiritual leaders of our home. It starts with us. So guess what? If we are seeing that the Most High is being removed out of our communities, that's because of our failures as men. And we must be responsible enough to make up for our mistakes, even if it was the past generations. Joshua chapter 24, verse 15 says, "And if it seems evil to you to serve Yahuwah, choose for yourselves this day whom you'll serve, whether the gods which your fathers served that were on the other side of the river, or the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve Yahuwah." You see, Joshua made it clear what his home, the home that he was responsible for, what they would do. And this is who you must be as well. Now, what are you responsible for? First thing, you are responsible for love. Now, let's be clear. There's a misunderstanding that man is not responsible to show love or show care. Today, it is very common that we as men feel that showing love is a form of showing weakness. And I will say to that claim, this may be valid depending on how you're doing it. Obsessive or overly emotional or just extra with it, crying all the time. Yeah, that's a little weak. No woman wants a man that is always crying on her shoulders. But I digress. Men walking in love have been made to seem weak, and so men have grown to contain this love. This containment of love is a huge way that love for the Most High has been lost. You see, the main love that we as men have been trained to block or not show others is the love that we have for the Most High. This love for Him has been characterized to be looked at as weak, and therefore men out here are scared to show that they love and revere our Creator. This is a huge mistake, and it is exactly how we have let evil into our lives. For me, I love Yah, and my life is His, and I am not afraid to show this or be the man that represents this. There is nothing weak about loving our Creator. There is nothing weak about being in submission to Him. There is nothing weak about placing your life in His hands and depending on Him for all. The Bible is a book that displays this action amongst the Israelites for generations. Our most beloved heroes that people love to speak about, whether it's Abraham or Moses or King David, these were mighty men who loved Yah and did not hide it. And because of their love and honor of Him, they were abundantly blessed as well as their families and those who followed them. You see, what is not being said loud enough today is that for many of you men, the problems you are having in this world, the depressions you're dealing with, the insecurity, the heartache, the anger, all of this comes from your lack of connection with the Most High. You are denying Him, and therefore He denies you. It is not weakness to love Yah. A real man is one that loves Yah and is not afraid to show it. You got all these people out here calling themselves gangsters and real ones because they can rob, kill, and shoot. But that's not hard in this world. You're going along with the grain. That's what the world wants you to do. That's the culture today. Rob, kill, steal, cheat. That's what it is. That's what's in our music, and that's what's in our movies. That's what hip-hop culture has been made from. Just go back to Biggie and his Ready to Die album. Hear me clearly all. If the world is moving in that direction, co-signing all those feelings, you're not gangster for following it. You're just a follower. You are showing weakness. Now you know what's actually hard? Standing up for the Most High and His ways and commands when the whole world is against it. His way isn't advertised on billboards or promoted in our schools. It's the opposite. And it takes a real man to truly worship the Most High. It takes a real man to understand he is a sinner and needs forgiveness and accepts the grace Yah has given us through Yahusha. There are many that understand the purpose of Messiah, but they are too weak to admit that they need him. They are too weak to admit that they want to serve him because they don't want to lose respect of others that don't. They are too weak to go against the grain because it's uncomfortable. Do you know the expectation that Yahusha, Jesus, gave us? If the world hates you, you know that it hated me before it hated you. If you are of the world would love its own. Yet because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, therefore the world hates you. Remember the word that I said to you. A servant is not greater than his master. If they persecuted me, they will also persecute you. If they kept my word, they will keep yours also. That's John chapter 15, verses 18 through 20. So again, I'll ask you, do you know what's hard? We love him and don't deny him. We lose family and friends for our love of Yah, and we do not waver. And because of this love we have for him, it makes it so much easier to love our family and our friends and our neighbors. Showing love is not a weakness. It is a strength, and as a man, you must be responsible for showing that love and being an example of it. Think about how the world is today. How cold everyone is to each other. You think things would be like this if men stood in the majority and showed the strength they had by loving Yah, by loving their women, by loving their children, and loving their neighbors? Nowadays, we're lucky if we can get a man to show love to 2 of those 4. Love is not a weakness. It is a strength that only a real man can show. We are responsible for being representatives of Yah's word, and we cannot do this without love. Then one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question, testing him and saying, "Teacher, which is the great commandment in the law?" Yahusha said to him, "You shall love Yahuwah, your Elohim, with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these 2 commandments hang all the law and the prophets." That's found in Matthew chapter 22, verses 35 through 40. If you are a man that cannot show love, you are not yet a real man. That is a weakness that must be corrected. Now, as a man, we are also responsible for protection. We are to protect our women, our children, and our communities. Now, this is an area that many men, especially in America, really feel that they got covered. But the truth is actually quite the opposite. You see, in America, it's God, gun, country, something like that. People feel they are protectors of their home because they have a firearm and aren't scared to use it. But here's the newsflash. That's not the war being waged against you and your family. While you're probably posted up at the door with your firearm, the enemy has probably already infiltrated your home in multiple ways and you really don't even have a clue about it. The war being waged against us is both spiritual and mental. It's less physical. Most of us men don't protect our own minds enough, so how will we protect our women and our children? We fill our minds with garbage and debauchery, or distract ourselves with the most pointless things like scripted football and basketball games. We watch evil programming that is literally casting spells on us, and we say, "Oh, it's just entertainment." We feel proud because we aren't letting our children hang out with their friends late at night. But then we leave them with the smartphone and they're on IG till 3 a.m. doing lives, or they're in the bathroom taking selfies or watching adult content. But you feel you're protecting your home because you aren't scared to use a firearm? The only person you have fooled is yourself. We must understand the schemes and traps of our enemy. If you are a protector but only focusing on one method of attack against you, you have left your family at risk. You probably have no idea what it is being waged against you, or maybe you do and you're not doing what must be done to protect yourself and those you're responsible for. The reason why this war on men has been able to be waged is because we are not protecting ourselves or our homes or our families. Understand, none of this is a game. Evil is real, and there are people with a lot of power and control over you that wish to do you harm, along with your women, along with your family, and your community. And as a man, it is your job to be a wall of defense against it. Monitor the content being watched in your home, and that goes for yourself too. Find out exactly what it is your child is learning at school. Ask them questions. Know their friends. Keep them off of social media until they're at an acceptable age. If they cannot drive, they shouldn't be on social media. You have no idea what that algorithm is presenting them. Watch and monitor the streaming channels they have, and look what it is that they are streaming. Take the televisions out of their bedrooms, and don't let them sleep with their phones. I can keep going on and on. Be a protector and take this responsibility seriously. If your family is falling apart and evil seems to be prevalent in your home, it's because you were not properly guarding and protecting yourself and them. A real man guards and protects their family from all danger. Yes, physically, but also mentally and spiritually. And those are the biggest attacks being waged against us all. Now, you're also responsible to teach them. Now, when I say teach, I am not talking about school lessons. But if you are able, homeschool is always a great option that I recommend. If you have to, downsize your life in order to control what your children are learning. But when I speak of teaching, I'm talking about lessons. Whatever you have learned as a man growing, whether from your successes or your failures, what you have seen from others, what has been passed down to you, you must teach it to your family. Teach them how to love by being an example of this. If they see this from you, they will follow. Teach them how to protect by being the example they are to follow. What we see happening in this world is all about fathers not protecting their homes and teaching their families. And so our children go out and make the same mistakes that we did. Generational curses continuing to thrive because we are not being strong enough to break them. The Bible says, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." That's Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6. And we should take this proverb very seriously and live by it. We must teach our families about Yah. Don't wait for the preacher man to do it. Don't wait for Sunday school to do it. As a man, you are the spiritual leader of your home, and it is your charge and duty to raise up the next generation to know, to honor, and to submit to the Most High. And the world that we live in, that is in complete rebellion, has gone so dark because us as men are not taking this charge and responsibility serious enough. You are responsible for teaching them about Yah and introducing them to his ways. People feel they're more responsible to teach the children more about wickedness and rebellion than they are to teach them about Yah, and it's just so wrong and backwards. You are responsible to establish an environment that is safe for them to carry on and walk in biblical values. You are responsible for creating an environment that they know that they should not go in certain directions because you will correct it and punish accordingly. Just as our Father corrects us when we stray, we must do the same for our families. What was taken out of our homes, especially in single-parent homes, was a father's firm discipline and his unquestioned authority. Even in two-parent households, mothers began to question the father's authority and his choices. He began to be second-guessed in his own home and became emasculated. As men, I understand this is a problem, and we must learn how to deal with this better, because oftentimes our women do not know that they are doing this. For me, my wife would often find herself thinking she's protecting our sons, but what she was doing was crippling and enabling them, reducing the role of the father who was raising them to be strong. I had to work through this in my marriage, and we all as men must be strong enough to work through it ourselves. We cannot leave the homes and our responsibilities because the women have made it difficult for us. I know this is hard to hear, but it just needs to be said. Now, you're taught that a man provides for his family, and you are right. Unfortunately, we live in a world that is attacking men, and they do not want you to be a man. Just because you may not be where you want to be financially does not mean that that must stop you from being who you should be, independent from money. All of the things I mentioned earlier so far has nothing to do with money. Do not let your lack of money or resources give you an excuse to be less of a man than you should be. The system was designed to make us this way. But as a man, you are responsible to draw that line in the sand and still walk in your principles and values as a rock. I promise you, the right woman would want all those qualities, whether you are rich or poor. So please do not define and value your worth as a man according to your bank account. Now, being that we're dealing in a difficult world, let me say some other things that are also important. Having a good woman, a wife, this needs to be your goal. You need a woman. You don't need women, plural. You don't need to go and sample all the many fruits. Protecting women is more than just protecting them from physical danger, but about protecting their virtues. In this culture today, we are taught to go and sample as many as we could, but that command is from Satan. Understand, he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from Yahuwah. That's Proverbs chapter 18, verse 22. Do you know how wonderful it is that Yah has made someone for you that completes you? That is your other half? We all have our way about us, and Father made someone for each of us that completes us. That's why we become one flesh. If you make it your goal to find a good wife, you will find one. Now, that doesn't mean force it and pick the first woman you meet, but if you trust Yah and let him guide you to her, you will find favor from him, and your life will be blessed. Many men today are getting married at older ages or not married at all. We feel we need to date a woman for a few years just to know if she's right for us. And guess what? When there's a problem, we leave them. There's always problems in marriage. But when you commit, you actually know you don't have other options, and it allows healthy relationships to form. Marriage is a great thing. Being a player is not what you want to be. This does not allow you to be the man Yah desires you to be. Now, I know for many of you, it is hard in this generation to find someone. Everyone and everything seems to be so evil. If it is hard for you to find someone, maybe you're focusing on it too hard. Let it go and give it up to Yah. Pray on it and let him lead you. Work on yourself first, and when you are ready, he will deliver your blessing. Don't chase women by feeding your flesh. Today, being a beautiful woman is more like a career for many of the women I see. They all practice the same poses and wear clothing that is designed to get our attention. Look for the beauty in how she really is and what she wants to be for you. Now also, control your mind and do not be easily led astray. Most men you see today are walking zombies. Someone else is controlling their minds. Knowing what controls them depends on their generation. You see, no one likes to admit that their mind has been messed with. Anyone you meet that says they have never fell victim to mind control is one that is still under it. For you as a man, know your values and what you stand for. Write it out if you have to, and be unwavering and committed to them. The problem with most men today is they are double-minded, which makes them unstable in all their ways. Let your yes be your yes and your no be your no. Be consistent. When people deal with you, they should always know what they're going to get. For instance, in dealing with me, I will always keep it real with you. And if it needs to be said, you will know I will say it. Whether you like what I have to say or not, you have to respect it. And while I'm on that word, respect is a must. Be one that demands respect. Not demands respect by your words or your anger or your emotions, but by your actions. Respect is not given because people fear you. That's not respect, that's fear. Respect is given because it is earned. Don't play around with your respect. Be one that people respect, not just in your own community around your own type of people, but wherever you go, make sure you look as if you are someone who should be respected. Hold on to that mentality, and it will help you in your dealings with people. Now, this is important. Don't let anyone come between your relationship with Yah and your relationship with your wife as well. As you grow as a man, people will come from many different angles to try to get you off your track. Satan's desire is to first move you from your spouse, because once he does that, he can tilt your whole life off balance. So don't bring a whole bunch of people in your relationship. It only brings confusion. Work your problems out with your spouse personally. But while marital attacks are huge, the biggest attack is people trying to attack your relationship with Yah. I do not care if they're your mother, your father, your brother, or your sister, your cousin, grandparents, best friends, your children, even your spouse. Nothing and no one comes before Yah. And if you find people making you feel bad about your faith is always being mentioned as a problem, you may need to reevaluate those relationships. Don't let others come between you and the Most High. This subject is something that is very near and dear to me, maybe you can tell. There is an all-out attack against men, and we must be mindful of it and be examples of what the world is trying to forget. I am a black man, and if you pay attention to all that has been going on with these attacks today, you'd have to be blind to not see that black men are under attack. There are 2 movies coming out right now about women warriors. I mean, that new Black Panther trailer barely showed a man in the movie. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they made the new Black Panther a woman. President Biden's administration has been quietly attacking black men. There is an attack on black men specifically. I actually have made a separate video addressing this. Please watch that video after this one. But the issue is a simple one. If there are no men to defend our families and our communities, Satan will expose this as weakness and tear the world apart. And this is exactly what has been happening to our world. And we can discuss women and how women of today don't want to be submissive and it's hard to find a good one. But all of this starts with you. This is what I'm speaking of when I'm talking about taking responsibility. Be a man that a woman wants to trust and submit to. Be a man responsible for yourself and your family. Be a man that is making sure Yah is first. We are moving to a time of great turmoil, and we need all men to rise up and stand up for Yah. Will you put him first? All the other areas of our lives will be fixed as well. He is our solution. Don't be a man seeing all this evil and trouble upon us and still be too weak to protect your family. They all need us as men. It is our responsibility to be there for them. I am not coming at any of you, but it is very important that we live according to our purpose, regardless of where Satan has been trying to lead us. Our women and our children need us to help lead them and guide them in these times that are approaching, and you must take your role as a man seriously. As these dark times approach, all men of Yah must rise up and be responsible for ourselves, our women, our children, and our communities. You are a man of Yah, and you were born to be ready for this moment. So listen, on the real, when women ask and want to know, where have all the real men gone? Make sure you are one that can boldly stand and say,
We are still here!
We are still here. Be strong and be blessed. Hallelujah. Praise Yah. Okay. Thanks again for watching. If this has blessed you, please make sure to like it and please share this with others. If you haven't done so already, please make sure to subscribe to this channel. Elohim willing, I upload every Friday. Also, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel on Facebook and Instagram, as well as on my website, Truthunedited.com. As always, I'd like to thank all who donate and contribute to this ministry. Please know that your donations are truly a blessing to this ministry and they help very much. Thank you for your love and support and letting our Father use you. You are truly a blessing and I really appreciate your support. Be blessed. Okay. Thanks again, everyone, for watching. I love you all.